all know what they saw. They saw what we saw. They saw the frail elderly man who needed help getting off the stage. They're just too chicken shit to tell us about it because they accurately deduce that he could still be the Democratic nominee and they don't want to ding him up. Maybe you give Barbara a pass. Who gives a damn what this singer saw or says? But you know what? Jimmy Kimmel happens to be employed by ABC, which happens to have a rather large news organization. And he has been one of President Trump's most vocal critics. Where are you, Jimmy? On vacation? Not good enough. You can still use your thumbs to send out a tweet. You could set the record straight right now, but you won't.
You all know what they saw. They saw what we saw. They saw the frail elderly man who needed help getting off the stage. They're just too chicken to tell us about it because they accurately deduce that he could still be the Democratic nominee and they don't want to ding him up. Maybe you give Barbara a pass. Who gives a damn what this singer saw or says? But you know what? Jimmy Kimmel happens to be employed by ABC, which happens to have a rather large news organization, and he has been one of President Trump's most vocal critics. Where are you, Jimmy? On vacation? Not good enough. You can still use your thumbs to send out a tweet. You could set the record straight right now, but you won't. What happens when Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly team up for roast duty, and Jimmy Kimmel ends up as the unlucky pinter? Spoiler alert. It's not late-night comedy. It's career CPR. From brutal ego blows to sharp truth bombs with extra heat. This roast quickly becomes a 3-alarm fire and Kimmel's the marshmallow getting torched. Buckle up because this isn't your typical celebrity feud. It's a full-on verbal demolition derby. And Jimmy forgot his helmet. So what exactly did he say to spark all this? Stick around. It's messier than a Twitter meltdown. All of a sudden, the ideology shifts because so many people are compromised by this very thing that we were talking about before. The very thing that they use to control the media in terms of the news, they use it to control the media in terms of late-night talk shows and monologues as well. It's the same influence because they're the same sponsors, the same people are spending the same money on the same networks. And it has an impact if it affects your livelihood and affects your future and your ability to do this thing that you love doing, which is hosting a talk show, and you're doing it on a network that is paid for by that money. Guess what? That affects you. Once upon a time in the land of late-night TV and carefully packaged sincerity, Jimmy Kimmel was the jester-in-chief, the guy known for beer-chugging skits and bikini-bounce houses, not heartfelt monologues. Fast forward to today, and he's practically Hollywood's Dalai Lama, clutching his pearls over moral crises with the same hands that once high-fived brothers for far jokes. So what happened? Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly have a few theories, and let's just say they didn't exactly whisper them into the void. Just this past 2 weeks they had the Kennedy Center honors the other night where Joe Biden couldn't say Dionne Warwick. He kept calling her Diane and he didn't know who Barry Gibb was. He kept calling him Billy. You know who else was honored at the Kennedy Center? You know who else? Billy Crystal. Just FYI, do you know who once opened up the Academy Awards in full blackface? Oh yeah, Billy Crystal. Billy Crystal. And do you know who's going to be hosting the Academy Awards this year? Jimmy Kimmel. Do you know who's worn blackface repeatedly and spoken inner-city sort of urban accent saying she needs to darn those socks? Jimmy Kimmel as Oprah as a fat-suited blackface darning socks. Oprah. Now if you are of the left, that's fine. If you are of the right and happen to just say, hey, people used to wear blackface and nobody freaked out about it, you get fired. First up, enter Joe Rogan, MA commentator, podcasting powerhouse, and full-time wrecking ball of sugar-coated nonsense. Rogan doesn't tiptoe around criticism. He charges in like a caffeine-fueled rhino with a personal vendetta against anything fake. And to him, Kimmel isn't just a late-night host. He's a fossil. A leftover from a time when comedy stood for more than just flashing cue cards filled with virtue. That sort of self-censorship and the idea of being a more empathetic person is a good thing, right? But as long as it's reasonable. But the thing is, the problem with that kind of stuff is it continues to go in the same direction where more and more things become forbidden and toxic. Rogan's take isn't rooted in personal beef. It's more like a spiritual offense. When you build your brand on being the everyman, the guy who says what others won't. Seeing someone like Kimmel morph into Hollywood's moral concierge feels like finding out your favorite dive bar now serves gluten-free kale shots with motivational quotes on the wallet's betrayal just with a laugh track. Kimmel's evolution or devolution, depending on your perspective, Plays out like a living satire sketch. The Elon Musk joking around about my pronouns are prosecute Fouché. Jimmy Kimmel made a tweet back to him. He said, "Your pronouns are ass and hole," which is pretty funny. But then did he really? Yes. And so then I read that and there was people saying, please don't joke about pronouns. It's transphobic to joke about pronouns. So they were chiding him for participating in a joke about pronouns. Hold on. So it's so Jimmy Kimmel was doing oh yeah, he was doing it too. Yeah, he was doing it too. Yeah, he was part of it, to the man who once rode the comedy line. Like a rodeo bull now clutches a golden moral compass that always seems to point conveniently toward applause. Rogan, ever the bloodhound for authenticity, can smell the rebrand from a mile away. This isn't just a pivot. It's a full-on career Botox injection. And nothing screams I'm still edgy like recycling the same tired political sermon, sandwich it between HR-approved jokes. Rogan's world, by contrast, is messy, chaotic, sometimes unhinged, but always brutally real. It's a space where people can disagree without erupting into moral outrage. Kimmel, meanwhile, seems to have chosen the safety blanket of Hollywood consensus. What Rogan sees is a man who traded in his comedic soul for Instagram clout once. Unpredictable, now utterly beige. It's like watching a punk rocker from the 90s become a Whole Foods brand ambassador. Sure, he still tells jokes, but now they come with waivers and trigger warnings. Comedy that once hit like a punch now lands like a corporate memo. And then there's the ecosystem. Kimmel's late-night landscape isn't just sanitized. It's bleached, scrubbed, and gift-wrapped for the algorithm. Rogan looks around and sees clones, same jokes, same politics, same punchlines, no risk, no edge. Late night has become a daycare for ideologues with cue cards. And unfortunately, Kimmel is the head babysitter. You got the Sunday morning show with Stephanopoulos into the evening Academy Awards broadcast with Kimmel. And ABC elevating, the blackface-loving Kimmel. They at the same time fired Chris Harrison, host of The Bachelor, for trying to defend one contestant on The Bachelorette for saying, "Gee, I know I went to this antebellum party, a couple years ago. I guess I didn't see anything wrong with," and all he said was, "Are we judging her by today's standards or are we judging her by, old standards, whatever?" He was basically trying to say, are we being too hard on her? Got fired. Chris Harrison has to be fired by ABC. I don't know why. Because he's not a committed leftist, cuz he's not out there more saying all the terrible things about Republicans that Jimmy Kimmel says. So this is them saying, we get it. We're an ally, right? And I guess maybe they're trying to make up with their racist past for their racist past without ever acknowledging. Cue the transition music, because now gliding in with a precision strike comes Megyn. If Rogan swings with a sledgehammer, Kelly cuts with a scalpel. Her approach is surgical, clinical, and absolutely unflinching. No need for stand-up specials or bro jokes. Just a blade labeled media hypocrisy. And Kimmel is the prime cadaver. Where Rogan sees a fallen comic, Kelly sees a puppet, not a clown, but a well-dressed sock. A mouthpiece for an industry that only pretends to care as long as the numbers check out. In her view, Kimmel's transformation isn't just irritating, it's calculated. He didn't evolve, he pivoted, sensing the whines of political virtue and duct taping a sail to his suit. Kelly has no patience for performative empathy, especially when it's paired with a conveniently erased past. Kimmel, once the king of crude, is now the moral sheriff, but only when it's safe. Funny how redemption arcs always seem to line up perfectly with contract renewals, almost like someone scheduled them. She exposes the sleight of hand. Kimmel now preaches from a pedestal built on the same behavior he once sold for laughs. And Hollywood doesn't applaud because they believe him, but because he still serves a purpose. Yes, hypocrisy is alive and well amongst these sanctimonious leftists. From Kimmel to Dyro to Stephanopoulos, they want you to believe they're better than you, more virtuous, more decent. But we all know the truth. They lie. They sin. They do the very things they accuse you of and the things they say they would never do. Evil things like try to destroy people based on feigned outrage from which they spare their own side. The media loves a redemption story as long as the redeemed join the choir. And Jimmy, he's practically the lead soprano. But here's where it gets interesting. While Kelly picks apart the PR spin and publicist-crafted apologies, she also exposes the real engine behind it, all the incentives. Kimmel doesn't get a pass because he's remorseful. He gets one because he changed sides. It's not about morality. It's about market alignment. Morals are optional, but loyalty to the narrative is non-negotiable, and now to very different critiques have landed on the same target. Rogan calls out the plastic shell where a comedian once stood, while Kelly shines a light on the empty suit behind the media curtain. And both are painfully accurate in their own way. Rogan sees a once authentic voice buried under studio polish and addicted to applause, while Kelly sees a calculated chameleon, adjusting just enough to survive each new outrage wave.